Jesse Vang, one of the two people charged in connection to the death of Elijah Vue, requested a change of venue and that some evidence be excluded from his upcoming trial. Vang is charged with 3 felonies, including physical abuse of a child and hiding a corpse. Vang had reported that the 3-year-old as missing in February 2024, and Vue was later found dead. The new motion filed argues Vang can't get an impartial jury in Manitowoc County, where there was public involvement in the search for Vue. Prosecutors have until April 20th to respond to Vang's requests. There is also a hearing set in May.